Eoghan Corry is my name. My uncle Jack was married to Mary. He's from Clare, and with Father Shannon's permission, with your permission, I'm going to just speak very briefly about her for the next 3 or 4 minutes. Largely family here. So what I'm going to say will be familiar to most of you. What the Gospel told us is there were many rooms in my father's house, and you couldn't think of a more appropriate phrase for Mary's homecoming. It's effectively her month's mind. She died a month ago in Clough-Mills in County Antrim, and it's the interment ceremony today, and she is coming to her house, to her father's house. The brass in this church was polished by Mary as a young child. She couldn't have lived closer to the church. She was living where the community centre is now. The house is long demolished. She went to school in the little building behind me here. They didn't need a coach. It took like 20 metres to walk to school in the morning. All her life was in this campus. It was a very different campus. There were some palm trees in the front. There wasn't a car park in front. But all of her life was in this cluster with the graveyard where we're bringing her, where her father is buried, and her school, her home, her neighbours. The old man who used to fall over the dog coming home every night and apologised to the dog, who never bit it but just howled with pain. All of these were Mary's neighbours, and Mary's childhood is of 2 places. Inagh was where she grew up. She also had relations in Clare, and they're here from Clare in Crete today. She had an aunt there. She cycled 12 miles in the morning, 12 miles in the evening. It's a beautiful sunny day in West Clare, but it's not always sunny. It was quite a commute. And she effectively became managing the Leadmore dairies in Kilrush at the age of 16, doing everything, doing the stock taking, the accounts, the profit and loss, what nowadays we call HR, but in those days was called solving the problem before it started. And Mary was there when a handsome young tradesman came in to help repair Leadmore dairies or do extension work there. His name was John Corry, Jack Corry. He was my uncle, a notorious storyteller, trickster, and a man who was great fun to be in his company. When he first came to visit Mary's mother, he was picking up a car because he was a great man to fix a car in the days he could fix cars, and the car was wobbling all over the road because the steering was wonky. And Mary's mother was looking at all of this in horror, convinced that Jack was a drinker. Jack was a teetotaler all his life and didn't have any time for drink. There were 8 in the family, Mary's family. Some of them are here today. She was the eldest, and followed by Nancy, Bridie, James, John, the late John, who went to Boston, Kitty, who's living in Shannon, and Bart, who's here today. And 2 childhood tragedies marked out Mary's early life. One was the death of her father when she was just 6 months old. Unusual that her father's surname and her mother's surname were the same, but her mother remarried Bart Moylan. While she was Mary Reedy, her siblings were all Moylans, and young Patrick Moylan, which we'll remember here today. And he was born in March 1958, but he died at the age of 6 months in a fire. She's joining him in heaven. Mary lived most of her life in London, but in that sense that people who go far from West Clare, they bring West Clare with them. They don't tend to leave it behind. And Mary's life, when you visited her in Enfield in Middlesex, was full of stories of West Clare and things like greyhounds and coursing. And Jack was very involved with greyhounds and culture of dogs, and a great animal lover. And Mary was tending many a sick dog in London, far away from West Clare, but she might as well have been back here. Bringing someone home, and it does not come closer to that whole concept that we heard of in the Gospel of bringing someone home than Mary coming to the ashes, beside the house she grew up, beside the school she grew up at, and to the graveyard to which we're bringing her. What does she see when we bring her home? The house she was reared has ne'er a stone, the road uphill to Flanagan's Well, the path to Seal Shawn to milk the cows, the school her copybooks were piled as Master Garrihy multiplied. What do we remember when our loved one dies? The smiling face, the welcoming eyes, the hugs she gave us as a child, the bulging birthdays of surprise, those stories by the winter fire, the knowledge she was on our side, the prayers of which she never tired. Long may Mary's life inspire. Thank you. Thank you, Mary.